Hello, and this is my computer hardware project in which I was challenged to make a computer for myself. And in this project, I gave myself a few goals with the computer that I had to make. The first goal is that I had to keep it under a pretty generous budget of $1,500 just so that it wouldn't go insane and be way too expensive. The second one is that I want the computer to be able to game and be able to do VR games while be able to stream, which it would need a pretty powerful CPU and GPU to be able to handle that. Thirdly, the computer has to have a Threadripper CPU. The reason behind this is just because I like the idea of Threadrippers and I'd like to put one into the PC I'm building if I ever get the chance. And the fourth one is the computer has to have a consistent theme or color scheme, because a computer doesn't really look good if one part of it is all like green and blue and the other part of it's just like a bright white or red. So before going into building my own PC, I looked at a few pre-built ones that I could find on the internet. The first, and what I find with all pre-built PCs is that even though some of them are really good, all of them have a flaw because you can customize them and really make them your own. So the first one I found was a Millennium by Origin PC, and the problem with this one was that it was over budget. It had everything else, it had the Threadripper, it had everything I needed, but it was just way too over budget, which is really the case for most pre-built PCs. They're either really expensive or they're really cheap and don't do much. The second one I found was a Threadripper by AMD. No, an AMD Threadripper by iBuyPower. This one was a little bit over budget, but I didn't really think that $50 was that big of a deal. You could probably get like a coupon or something that it can go down, so that wasn't really the problem with this one. The problem that I saw with it is that it couldn't really handle streaming while gaming. It had everything you needed to game and to do that successfully, but it didn't have the GPU capabilities to stream while doing so. The third one was a Threadripper by CyberPower, which was under budget. It met pretty much all the requirements. Um, it might not have been able to stream VR games, but it could stream regular games. The only problem is that it could be better. That there are a lot of parts that you could just bump up and make a little bit better for a little bit more price, but a lot more power and get a good outcome. So when building my PC, these were the three key components, and these key components all oriented around a Threadripper, because a Threadripper is what I was designing this whole computer around. So first thing, we have the actual Threadripper CPU, which is around $320. The Threadrippers are really fast. They can handle a lot of different programs running at once. They're perfect for streaming, which I want to be able to do with this computer. The downside to them is that you need, with the next two components, you need a special cooler and you need a special motherboard so that it can fit the Threadripper in it, which you can see in that larger CPU slot right there. So the cooler and motherboard are both a decent amount of money. All three of them combined is around like $700, $650, but I can still use the remaining like $900, $800 to make the rest of my computer good and viable for gaming. So these are my other components to this computer. First, we have some RAM. I don't really need a lot of RAM in this computer because the Threadripper itself is powerful enough that you don't really need that much RAM. Um, so 8 gigabytes is enough. If I had a little bit more budget, I would probably get maybe another 4 gigabytes or another 8 gigabytes if I could. But right now, 8 gigabytes is fine and is able to do what I want to do. Next, I chose two solid-state drives because storage is very important for me when I'm building a computer. And I chose two different 240 gigabyte SSDs. And the reason I chose SSDs is because they're faster, quieter, and they're just all around better than a hard drive, except for cost, of course. Next, I have an MSI GeForce 1060. This is a really good GPU. It can handle pretty much every game you throw at it on at least high settings. It's decently budget considering the cost of GPUs today, and now that they have the 2080s Ti's and the 1060 Ti and stuff like that. This is a good above average GPU that can do everything you want it to do and is still a decent cost. Next, using PC Part Picker, I was able to find a tower that would fit all this, and that would be the mid-tower case, which has a red and black theme, along with actually my Threadripper and all of its components, which also has a red and black color to it. Nextly, for the power supply, I found a semi-modular power supply. I need this power supply to be somewhat modular so that it could handle any changes or adjustments either to the case or to the components in it, and also that it could adapt to the amount of power that it's required and take in less or more power if needed. Lastly, just for the operating system, I got Windows 10. This is just a good all-around operating system. You don't really need the Pro version or like all the special bells and whistles that come with the Pro version. All you really need is this version, which will run. It can do everything you want to. It's pretty fast. It has built-in virus detection, which I found to be pretty good. One thing you might also notice is that I didn't include an optical drive in this. Not because I couldn't, but just because I don't really see a point in optical drives anymore. Yes, they are helpful if you want to download a game for PC that you have on CD, but then I don't really see a point with them because even if you're downloading a game with the CD, you just end up throwing the CD after you download it, so what's the point of even having the optical drive? And besides, you can always download a lot of stuff off the internet and digitally now. So this is what I found with this computer. It stayed very under budget. It was not very under budget, barely under budget. I believe it was about $14,800. Pretty much right under budget, but it was able to do everything I want to do. All the parts were compatible thanks to PC Part Picker, making it easier to check that. It had a theme. All the parts had a red and black lighting. The Threadripper and all of its components had red and black options, as well as the case. And it was by doing like a digital benchmark test, using all these components, it was actually capable of doing lower end VR and streaming simultaneously. Without streaming, this thing could do pretty much any game you want it to do. And that is my custom PC.